networking opportunity for you to meet some new Bitcoiners, right? Do you know each other? No. That's wonderful. That's wonderful. That's a new friendship today, maybe. Okay. So sit next to somebody because you're going to be working in couples. Okay. So find your buddy for this 1 hour, and we're going to start very soon. You're searching for a buddy, right? Okay. You can join Kate here. Okay. You are two there. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Okay, guys, so a long day behind us. It's already 4 p.m. Who was here from like 8 in the morning? Wow. 9 in the morning? Who was sleeping till like 11? Nobody. Okay. You wish? Yeah, I wish too. You know, hard night yesterday with the Lugano spritz. So, before we start, I would like to ask you to get up, stand up, and make sure you have somebody next to you. Okay? Wonderful. Okay, now raise your hand above you, turn to the right, and if you have somebody in front of you, give him a little massage. So nice little massage, just a little bit, you know, after a full day of working out. Wonderful, you know, I'm using, oh, this is wonderful. Okay, like a great Bitcoiner. Now turn around and do the same thing for your body. Man, you wanted a massage, you don't get it. So just a little bit, you know, full day behind us. I can see some faces being pretty happy right now. Okay, wonderful. You can stop right now and sit down and let's continue. So I asked in the beginning, like, who is doing already a Bitcoin education? So do we have some Bitcoin educators here? Little bit. Anything, even family dinners and Christmas dinners, that's Bitcoin education as well, right? So don't be afraid that you need to stand on stages. Anything you do when you talk to your friends about Bitcoin, that's already Bitcoin education. Today's workshop is going to be focused on Bitcoin analogies. So why do you think it's important to develop and use analogies in education?
First of all, because they need to get an example.
They need to get an example.
The examples are
Mm-hmm.
most amazing things that you can provide.
Totally. Examples are super helpful. Yes?
It's on simplification. Bitcoin can be a difficult topic
Yes.
for non-learners, and to compare it to something they already know,
Mm-hmm.
it's simplified.
Yes, exactly. So simplification of the concepts. That's exactly why we use analogies, because Bitcoin is really like this huge beast. Hey, gentlemen, can I ask you, do you want to join us? Not, no. Next time, maybe. So yeah, Bitcoin is this beast that is complicated. It's like this meme of elephant and everybody looking on the elephant from a different side. And from one, like, oh, elephant is a trunk. From another one, oh, elephant is a tail. It's all of it. And to really understand it, you need to have examples, you need to have simplifications. So when you're speaking to your mom, anybody onboarded mom into Bitcoin? Wonderful, it was like a very quick hand. Okay, that's good. Like parents are the toughest ones. You know, my mom was like very hard to onboard, but right now she's going to Bitcoin ATMs, buying Bitcoin with cash, non-KYC, you know, self-custody. Actually, like a couple of weeks ago, I was buying medicine for my grandma, for her mom. And she was like, yeah, just buy it and I will send you like Bitcoin over Lightning. I'm like, Mom, like that's amazing. So we send each other Bitcoin over Lightning. So she's really like a great mom. So Bitcoin analogy is a very important element. And if you're doing education, something that you're gonna love and use. Think about analogies almost like a map to a territory, right? Every analogy has some drawbacks. It's not exact representation of what the thing is. If you're gonna use analogy for what is blockchain, what is a Bitcoin wallet, the level is basically really depends on how well the person is educated on Bitcoin or in general in tech. So you need to start slow, and the deeper the person goes, the more they understand, the more you can go until the real explanation of what the thing really is, kind of on the IT level, right? Everything on top is kind of like a representation of a territory. Each map is not the territory itself, right? So analogies are like maps to the territory of Bitcoin. So how the workshop is going to look like, I prepared a couple of analogies for you, and you're going to be working in couples to come up with analogies on that particular concepts. And then I'm going to tell you which ones are the ones that I use, show you some slides that you can use as well, and I can send you the presentation as well that you can use in your education. So,
Can I ask you a question?
yes, of course.
May I interrupt you just for a second? I was sitting here and I lost my phone.
Oh, there was somebody, the guy in a green, in an orange shirt.
Yeah.
He found the phone and he went somewhere outside to search for somebody. So it's found.
Cheers. Thank you.
Bitcoiners are amazing, so you're gonna find your phone.
Thanks. Ciao.
I hope you don't have like a lot of bitcoins on there. So no software wallets, guys, on big stuff. Okay, so how it's gonna look like? So we are like two parts of the room divided by this middle lane, and I'm gonna give each couple of you in the first round two concepts, and you're gonna develop as many analogies on that concepts as possible. You're gonna have 3 minutes for that. Okay? Yeah, I know it's tough. It's not easy stuff, right? So, and then we're gonna discuss. You're gonna share what you came up with, and then we're gonna develop like which works better and so on. Make sense? Wonderful. So, in couples, right? So, this part of the room will work on two analogies, and that are, I will just tell you right now. So your first job will be to come up with analogies on Bitcoin address and Bitcoin wallet. So when you're explaining what is Bitcoin address or Bitcoin wallet, how to simplify it, how to use the best analogy you can come up with. Okay, so you guys, Bitcoin address and Bitcoin wallet in couples. And that part of the room will have open source, so kind of like open source approach, how to explain that, and decentralization of Bitcoin. So Bitcoin is like something so that our parents can understand, oh, this is what decentralization means. Does it make sense? I know it's a tough one. Any questions? No? So many. Okay.
Is it too late? Is it too late to leave the room? Or?
It's too late. It's locked. The doors are locked and your brain needs to work right now. Okay, guys, so 3 minutes goes right now. Start to discuss and do some notes. Do some like, oh, this is a good idea. Write it down. Okay, so 3 minutes starting right now. If you're not in a couple, just find somebody, okay? Just partner up. You can be 3 as well, no problem. Just join. So Bitcoin address, Bitcoin wallet, open source, and decentralization. So you need to brainstorm on your own now. Okay. So really get into the shoes of your moms and dads and colleagues. How can they understand these concepts? Okay, last 90 seconds. Okay, last minute. Hello there. We are working now in couples on analogies, so you can wait for round 2. They need to speak to the mic? Is it better or?
Yes, because
Recording. Okay.
the voice.
So now when people raise hands, they can wait for the mics.
One of the right, one of the left.
How would they raise hands? Okay, last 20 seconds, guys. tries to brainstorm. Quantity is also important here. The more ideas we have, the more we can pick from them. Okay. 5 seconds. And time's up. So, let's start with this group, with this lane. So, your first one was Bitcoin address. So, who wants to share what you come up with? What was the one that works pretty well? Yes. Wait for the mic so we have it on the recording as well.
Usually also at home or somewhere else, when I talk to no-coiners, I explain it with my home and my way to home, because I have only one home, but I can take different routes to my home. So address is here the way home, like going home. Then
Got
we
it.
try to find different other examples. Shall I also mention them?
We will go one by one, but I will just develop on that one with the house or home. This is a very good one because I use a lot analogy of like a GPS address, coordinates. Because the address is basically in the vast hugeness of the spaces of addresses, it's a particular label, right? What blockchain doesn't tell us is who's the owner. The same if you pull up a Google map and you just pick a random address in the whole world, you don't know from that map who's the owner and if the owner of that house owns multiple other houses. Just like you said, you own only one flat or home, but you might be owning 20, and if you let me go inside of your one home, I don't know if you own other 20 homes, right? So this is very interesting to understand for pre-coiners or no-coiners, that if I know ownership of one address, I don't need to know the ownership of so many others. That's why we don't reuse addresses. When you're sending somebody address, we always send new address, because otherwise people would know all the Bitcoins that I have, and we need to keep our privacy. So really don't reuse addresses. Super important for your privacy. So the address is very good one, and it gives us, the analogy works in many levels. One is that the ownership, the other is when you want somebody to send you Bitcoin, you need to send them the address. Otherwise, they don't know where to go. The same as if you want your friend to come to your house, you need to send them the address, like which street, which number. Otherwise, they will just end up nowhere, right? So very good one with the GPS and coordinates and address. Home address is very good. Anybody has other ideas? Yes, sir. The microphone, can you pass it? Yes.
Hi.
What's your name, sir?
Luigi.
So what's your idea of the Bitcoin address? What's the analogy?
We were talking about, or I was proposing the IBAN account number.
The IBAN, okay.
We have this in Europe, so this is a public address, so everybody understands that you can share,
Yes.
but you don't have access to it. And the private address is a little bit more difficult, but when you have a bank account or you need to do some sort of identification, verification.
Yeah, it works in a way like this. The simplest for no coiners are like your address is like your bank account or like your IBAN. Where people are getting lost is when you tell them like, oh, you can have as many addresses as you want, which in bank doesn't work that way. We are always using one IBAN, right? So that it's very good to tell them like address is like your IBAN, but these are the distinctions. And that's where the education comes in as well, and they will understand, oh, so it's like for every new transaction, I create a new IBAN, right? And then they start to think like, oh, Bitcoin is different in these senses. They start to distinguish it from the regular banking. I remember actually a story. I was consulting for one fintech startup, and when people were registering, they needed to put the IBAN because they were like getting rewards. And we got so many messages, like threatening messages, like how come that you are asking me for my bank account? You can steal my money. You can like from this bank, from this IBAN, you will see my balance and everything. So people normally they don't know that just with IBAN you cannot steal them anything from the wallet, right? So there is still a lot of education necessary in the traditional financial world as well. But yeah, the IBAN works. Anything else that you came up with? Yes, sir.
Like email address for money. So.
Yes, email address works as well, pretty well. Why? Because again, one owner can have millions of email addresses and you cannot connect them. There's no connection in between. You can use a new email address for every new email that you're receiving, so that works as well. The one that I use quite a lot is a letterbox which is transparent. Why transparent? Because in blockchain, in Bitcoin, we see whatever is inside of the wallet, of the address, right? We see what Bitcoin is there. But if we don't have the key, we cannot unlock it. And this is when you tell somebody like all the Bitcoins, like let's say 3 million Bitcoins are lost. And they're like, how come you can lose something digital? Where is it when it's lost? If you explain them that it's just sitting in the same box, in the post box, everybody can look at it, but the keys are lost, then they get it much better, right? So all the Bitcoins are still there, we can verify that, but probably they will never move. And you can now imagine the whole space of addresses like a huge wall with billions of these letterboxes with labels. And by the label, you find the right box that you can just throw something in, but you cannot just open it up, right? So this also gives people kind of a rough idea. Okay, I can see the inside. I cannot access it if I don't have the keys. I can send Bitcoin to anybody because there's nothing preventing me to insert letters in that thing, but only the owner can open it up. And again, the owner can own hundreds of these boxes without us knowing. Make sense? Wonderful. Okay. So the next one, the Bitcoin wallet. We'll return to that, but let's start with you guys. What was your the first one?
Open source.
Open source. So who came up with some open source analogies? Let's check it out.
We came up with Wikipedia. So
Wikipedia,
everybody
okay.
can look at it and contribute. Might be something wrong. So this is a controversial part. But then on the other hand, there are many people who then check and
they can check and verify and find some mistakes. That's a good one. Wikipedia is a pretty good one. Everybody knows it, or like majority of people knows it, and that you can really look into it. There's nothing hidden, and you can contribute and change and propose changes. That's a very nice explanation and analogy of open source. Super. Anything else, guys, that you came up with? Yes, there's a gentleman, or yeah.
Yeah, so I came up with mobile phone that has like tape wrapped around it. So like, hey, this one is closed. You can't change the battery or anything. You have to cut the tape. If you cut the tape, it stops working. So like it's closed.
Got it.
And then it would be open if you can open it up, change the battery, change the screen, change everything. Like it's open. So now, of course, this is like code, but I'm explaining it to my mom and dad, that's like, hey, people can come and like change stuff and access stuff, see how it works, and with closed, they can't do much.
Got it. It's like a phone tape, you can change batteries. That's a nice one as well. That's a good one. That's a good one. Anything else? You had one?
Well, yeah, like open source is like a public piece of art. So it hangs in public, everyone passes by, can see it, and can feel free to change it, so to add something. And when the next one comes by and says, well, that's not a nice piece of art, what the guy just did there, he can change it again. So he can overwrite it or overpaint it.
Interesting. So public piece of art, that's an interesting one. Is there something here in Switzerland that I can go and just paint outside in the public?
Graffiti.
Yeah, I don't think it's
But they have
legal.
a code. You don't go over it. So
yeah, they will slap you if you just ruin something beautiful. But very interesting take as well. What I use for open source is a recipe book or recipe in general. And imagine this: if you come to a restaurant and you ask for food, you need to trust to the chef that he doesn't put any allergens there. Imagine you're allergic to peanuts and you tell, please chef, don't put any peanuts there. You need to trust them because you don't see what's happening in the kitchen. But if you cook your food in your home, you know exactly what goes in. The whole recipe is open and you can read every line of the recipe. So we can think of Bitcoin as a recipe book because it also has lines, it's being executed line by line. So it's a recipe book that's open and we can see what is inside. And if you don't like some ingredients in your recipe, in your food, you can change it, right? If you don't like too much salt, just remove it. If you like more chili, you just change your recipe. But what is interesting, the recipe doesn't, if you change your recipe, your food, it doesn't change it for anybody else. What's the national food of Switzerland? Fondue? And it has some procedure to do, right?
I guess so, yeah.
Okay, okay.
Wine and alcohol.
That's a good food, I like it. So imagine, for example, fondue, or in Italy you have aglio olio, right? And it has some specific, like this goes in and this doesn't goes in. And if you come to some Italian guy and tells him like, hey, I changed the aglio olio, this is the new aglio olio, they will laugh you out, right? Or if you just put pineapple on the pizza and tell them, hey, this is margarita, you're gonna get slapped, right? So don't try that. So you can, for you, your margarita can have pineapples, no problem, but to change it for everybody in the world, that's a super tough one, right? So this is kind of what the open source does. It allows you to change anything you want, but changing it for the rest of the world, it's kind of tough. And we will get to one of the other analogies very soon there. The one I use as well is like an open box. So when I do classes for teachers or kids, I use these types of slides. So just a random slide with some picture. And then I ask them what they think about it. And then on the slide, I can talk 10 minutes about open source and explain so it's like Schrodinger's cat, right? Once you open the box, you know what is inside. Nobody can fool you. But what other software companies are selling us is a closed box solution that you cannot see what is inside. You just need to trust, right? So this is another analogy I use. Who do you think is this guy? Pythagoras, that's correct. So why do you think I use him in my presentations talking about open source? I will give you a hint. So many people, maybe to you as well, but many people come to me and saying like, how can we trust Bitcoin? Like, we don't know who is Satoshi, maybe Peter Todd here, I don't know. Nobody knows, right? How can we trust that Bitcoin really works? And I give them the analogy of, okay, imagine a math class. A teacher is teaching kids about Pythagoras' theorem. And the kid raises a hand and says like, but how can I trust the Pythagoras theorem if it's not a scam? Because I don't know who was Pythagoras. Was he a good guy or a bad guy? Was he, that religion or this religion? The teacher would be like looking at like, are you kidding me? Or like, really? But that analogy is the same way. Why? Because Pythagoras' theorem works regardless of who Pythagoras was. If he was white, black, religious, non-religious, good guy, or a bad guy, he said something, he discovered a rule, the universal rule, and that works at that time, today, and in 100 years. It doesn't depend on the person. The same as Bitcoin doesn't depend on Satoshi. If Pythagoras would just reappear today and says like, no, my Pythagoras theorem will work this way right now, or he will change something, everybody will be like, no, man, I can verify it mathematically. This works. So whatever you change, it's something completely new and you can name it differently, but there is a consensus in the world that this is Pythagoras theorem, right? So this distinction between the person and the idea is super important to do when you're teaching Bitcoin, because then people have a lot of myths and a lot of misconceptions and distrust in Bitcoin, because they really believe that if Satoshi will come up or just appear again, he can destroy Bitcoin, change the rules, change anything. Not possible. Just like with the book of recipe. He can change his recipe, but it's impossible to change the recipe for everybody in the world, right? So I use this one to really cut the clear distinction. So right now we go to the Bitcoin wallet. That was this part of the audience. So what did you come up with? Analogy to a Bitcoin wallet. Yes, sir. What's your name?
Ed.
Ed. So Ed.
It's like a digital safe.
Digital safe. Okay. So safe in terms of like a box where you put money, right? Okay. Fair enough. Very easy to understand. Digital safe. Anybody else? I will come back to your analogy for one specific reason. Let's go to here. Just wait a second. So we have everything recorded.
Yeah. Sorry. I think it's more like a keyring
Mm-hmm.
to give access to safe.
Yes.
The famous,
Why keyring?
The letterboxes that you shared before. So it's a confusing term.
Yeah.
But it's more like a keyring than a wallet.
Yes. More like a keyring than a wallet. And this is very... Thank you for sharing this, because not so many people know this. But once you explain the wallet as a safe, people think that the money is in the safe. Because in your house, when you have a safe, the gold or whatever is in, it's totally inside physically. But with Bitcoin, it works a bit differently. You can lose your phone, you can use your Trezor, Bitbox. You don't lose your money because you have a backup. So the better analogy I keep using is like a keyring with keys. It's very unintuitive, but this is more close to reality. Because the same way, if you lose one key to your house, you're not losing your house. Your key is not your house, right? Not your property. You have multiple other copies, right? You can have one under the mat, one your wife has, right? Or your kids, and you can still enter the house and keep the property. But if you think, or if you give an idea that Bitcoin wallet works as a physical wallet, then people have like, okay, but if I lose my physical wallet, I lose my money. Doesn't work that way, right? So it's super important to really cut the clear distinction and give a good analogy. So you can start with like, oh, imagine it like a safe, but you can add more distinctions so they understand really like, oh, this is the difference. Because people will start to fall in love with Bitcoin when they understand the differences. Especially, I do education in Honduras, Salvador, other countries, but I'm born in Slovakia. And when I educate in Slovakia mostly, people are really asking me like, okay, why do we need Bitcoin? Like, we have cards, we can pay with our watches, and they really don't see a difference because they say like, this is digital as well, the card is digital as well, because they really don't know the distinctions. And the better you really explain them on specific and good analogies, the better they can be intrigued to learn more, right? So really, the better you understand it, the more you can really get people very interested in Bitcoin and fascinated by that. Like, oh, I can have multiple addresses, I can keep my financial privacy, right? And they start to think and they start to realize that the system we live in doesn't work ideally, right? So Bitcoin wallets, more like keyrings. Thank you for sharing. What's your name? Christoph. So Christoph said it really well. And on this, you can have multiple another analogies as well, right? So your Trezor is basically that keyring. You have multiple keys on that. You can create new ones. Each key opens only one of the post boxes, and you can work with other analogies on top of that. Make sense? Perfect. We did open source and decentralization. So what did you come up with, guys? This one I love the most. There are so many very interesting analogies that coming up from the audience. I always love it.
So my favorite one would be the starfish. A decentralized system works like a starfish. If you cut an arm or a leg, the starfish will survive, and it's even better, it will grow another arm. And it might be the case that the arm that is left grows another starfish. So it's even more resilient after it's being hurt.
Got it. Please don't cut starfish. Don't try it right now. Poor little guys. But yes, I don't know if starfish does it, but there are some organisms that do. I didn't know that about starfish. There are some like tiny little thingies. One more time? The honey badgers. Did you ever try to cut honey badger? Don't do it. Me neither. Okay, starfish, good one. So decentralization, the more you try to mess with it, the more resilient it becomes. And there's no one kind of brain in a sense that you can remove. So that works. Let's wait for others. What did you come up with, guys?
Okay, so a forest is like decentralized.
Forest?
A forest is an organism. It is every individual is connected to the other. We know that now. Trees are corresponding with each other, and when a storm hit one or two or three, it doesn't affect the rest.
Yes, that's a very good one as well. Trees and like forest, exactly. You can even take it further into like leaves on the tree, because the leaves are basically solar panels for the tree. Imagine if the tree would have just like one leaf, one solar panel. If that get messed up, the tree is fucked, right? So that's why it has so many leaves, various angles to the sun. So it's like super decentralized in this sense as well, in the terms of leaves. Any other ideas that you came up with? Yes?
Well, mom and dad probably wouldn't understand this, but BitTorrent for like from the kids from the 80s and 90s, the kids in the 80s and 90s would, I think...
Before the Netflix, the era and Spotify.
Like you're trying to download something and there's one peer, and then you understand, okay, so this is not centralized, like, but if there's more people in the network, then like it becomes fast. Like the network works better when there are more
nodes.
More nodes.
Totally agree. That's actually how Satoshi got inspired to really build Bitcoin, right? And that's a huge distinction between the previous projects that were centralized and cut down, like e-money and Liberty Reserve and all of this, eCash that were like super centralized. You know, the government came, hey, like, we don't like that you're creating money. They cut them down, the business went out of business, or they took the servers. So Satoshi said, okay, we need to do it differently. And that's one of the major, there are two elements that Satoshi implemented that really made a difference and Bitcoin survived. And the decentralized approach was one of them. The other was the difficulty adjustment. This is actually the only part that Nick Szabo didn't solve. And later in the podcast, actually, he mentioned that looking backwards, like, it's a wonderful solution, but he was afraid that once the miners comes in, they will mine everything in few weeks, and the Bitcoin or BitGold will be super centralized. And he didn't come up with that little element, and Satoshi did, and that's why we are on the conference actually. So, thank you. But yeah, that's a very good BitTorrent. Anybody, like, somebody doesn't know BitTorrent here? Everybody does, right? Okay, got it, perfect. Good piece of software, yeah, and still very much in use. So what I use, and I already mentioned it a little bit, is the analogy of a book. You can use the recipe book, but I will explain on a different type of book. So let's take Harry Potter, for example, right? Harry Potter, millions of copies around the world. And imagine, who is a Harry Potter fan here? Okay, Brie, okay, got it. We have a couple. So imagine that you don't like Dumbledore dying, right? If somebody didn't read Harry Potter, spoiler alert, Dumbledore died. And somebody was like, no, really? No! You messed my world. Who died? So yeah, so imagine you didn't like Dumbledore dying. And you say, I just buy the copy and I will change the rules. I will just, change the whole thing, change the whole story. You just remove the page and Dumbledore still lives. And then you're happy that you changed Harry Potter. Well, you only changed your one book because there are millions of copies around the world. So for you to change the rules, to change the story, you would need to change every book in the world. And getting to that, try it. Impossible. Specifically in something that is very easy to copy paste, like digital books. And even if there's one copy surviving of the original one, this can be recopied again. So this is the analogy I'm giving to people who are afraid that governments will ban Bitcoin. Like, yeah, the government comes, cut it down. And I use the analogy with the book. Either I use the Bible or Harry Potter or whatever book that is like multiple copies around the world. And I ask them like, okay, let's try to delete Harry Potter from existence, right? That's pretty impossible. And the same applies for Bitcoin. Tens of thousands of copies around the world. We don't even know where they are, all of them. So the government would really need to just come to our houses, erase the hard drives. Some of them are already in space on satellites, right? So good luck with that. And even though that just one survives, we can recopy the whole blockchain from scratch. So the Bitcoin will survive. So the power of decentralization, this is what people don't understand and very much underestimate. Because for no-coiners, decentralization is like some random technical concept. But if you really explain it with books pretty well, they understand like, oh, so it's almost impossible to delete Bible, right? Or delete an idea, because Bitcoin is an idea, right? We already know how it comes together. So even if we really, somebody or aliens will just delete every blockchain in existence, the idea cannot be killed, right? We already know how the proof of work works. We already know that it really can sustain. So there's no way to kill Bitcoin anymore, right? It's really like a once in a lifetime discovery thing. Just like discovering America. Just once. It happens once, never again. So the analogy with book works on very many levels, and especially the concept of distribution and copying and pasting, right? So that's the one I used a lot. Okay, so the first round's over. Nobody left so far, so I hope you're enjoying this and learning something new. So we're gonna go to round number 2. And some people joined as well, so I'm happy. Round number 2, again, 2 analogies for each couple. So, guys, you're gonna have, and again, for those of you who haven't been here, there's gonna be a round of 3 minutes where you find a couple, you meet somebody new, ideally somebody you don't know yet, and you're gonna brainstorm about this concept and which analogies to use for that. So, we have Bitcoin mining. So you're gonna have Bitcoin mining. You guys, your half will have hash function. Okay, hash function, Bitcoin mining. The second for you guys will be mempool. Okay, mempool. You're like, what? What is that? Try to guess. We will see what you come up with. Mempool, and you guys gonna have blockchain. Okay, so Bitcoin mining and mempool, and hash function and blockchain. 3 minutes starting right now. You know, really work hard with your brains. If you don't have any couple, just find somebody. Don't do it on your own. Meet somebody. Take this as a networking opportunity for you. Don't be afraid. Take courage. Okay? And then we're going to debrief another 4 analogies. Of course, of course. I know. But you worked very well during the academy, much more. So squeeze your brains, guys. So we got Bitcoin mining, hash function, mempool, and blockchain. Okay, 2 more minutes. And we're gonna be doing some mining together as well. You have a chance to win 10,000 sats in few minutes. Okay, last 40 seconds. Okay, last 10 seconds. Okay, time's up, guys. Time's up. So let's check what you came up with. Sorry, guys. So the first one, mining. So who has a very good analogy on mining? Yes, give us a second so we record it on a speaker, on a microphone.
So I have one that I like a lot. That it's the Rubik cube.
Sorry guys. Let's focus on what the guy has for us.
The Rubik cube. It takes a few minutes to solve for a human, but once you see a solved Rubik cube, you can validate it in a second.
So a Rubik's cube, right? Okay, so it takes. Explain it a little bit more. How you think about that?
Okay, so the thing about mining is that for miners it takes a lot of work to find a block, but once they solve one block and propagate it to all the nodes on the network, each one can validate the work immediately.
Yes, you nailed it pretty well because I would actually go into the hash function because that's kind of like difficult one way, easy the other.
Exactly.
So this is better analogy for hash, but we'll get there. For the mining, I use the Rubik's cubes in a little bit different scenario. Imagine I give you a Rubik's cube, right? So what to do with that? Somebody knows how to solve a Rubik's cube here? Okay, couple of you, perfect. What's your time, Bree, to solve it? Pretty good, pretty good. So look, if you know how to solve a Rubik's Cube, you can really get it under a minute. And you don't need to be like brainiac, right? The best guys takes it like 6 seconds, which is insane. I cannot even move my fingers in that time. But imagine I give you a Rubik's Cube without you ever looking at it. So you close your eyes, I blank them, I give you a randomly scrambled Rubik's Cube, and I tell you now and solve it, and I will tell you once you do it, like once it's done. It's impossible task, right? There's trillions and trillions of combinations, and without you seeing that, you can go forever. This is kind of the hardness of mining if you're mining solo with one machine. Comparison to, you know, finding a block is very similar to this one, right? So that's kind of the toughness of like, the miner doesn't see any information up front. They're just guessing. They're just random guessing, like solving a Rubik's Cube blindfolded, right? So that would be a task for few lifetimes. But you touched very nice point of mining. Perfect. Anybody else? Yes, please.
It's a bit maybe unconventional, but like mining and blockchain, maybe a generation of children. The children are all related to the previous one.
That's more like the blockchain, maybe. We will
then
get there.
Maybe mining, the process, like making children. You need proof of work.
Now it starts to be interesting. Continue.
Yeah.
Sometimes, as a parent, sometimes you win, sometimes you lose. No, okay, I will remember this analogy forever. Thank you for this one. Interesting. I will think about it a little bit more. I love this one. Okay. Okay, anybody else has a good one? That's crazy.
So I'm an architect, and there is this procedure of competition for a new architectural project.
Okay.
And there are many participants in this concours, and only the one who gets the best idea gets the prize.
Got it. So only the one winning getting the prize.
And everyone looking at the solution is well, it's a creative process, but it's a bit objective though as well.
Okay, that's interesting. Like competitions.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So what I use the most is the analogy with rolling the dice. Like this works on so many levels, and it's a competition, right? Mining is a competition. We are mining in Paraguay and Ethiopia, so that's how we make money. It's a tough business, right? But imagine rolling a dice. And imagine all of us here have, let's say, 10 dices. And we agree that whoever throws, let's say, 5 sixes, or like, let's say 5 ones, okay, let's simplify it, 5 ones, is the winner of the competition, right? So the only way that you can try is really like grab the dice and start rolling, and rolling. And after, let's say, 10 minutes, somebody raises a hand and says, hey, I throw 5 ones. We all can look at it and verify, right? So it was a hard process, like the Rubik's Cube, very hard process to get it based on luck, because in the Rubik's Cube, once you know the algorithm, it's not based on luck. That's why the Rubik's Cube doesn't hold very much with mining. So this is based on luck. You're just rolling, and once you do it, it's super easy to verify, and everybody in the world can verify. We all can look at your dices that you really threw 5 ones. And where this works pretty well is in difficulty adjustment part, because imagine there's more people coming in, because for every winning 5 ones, you're getting 10,000 sets, which is a pretty good deal. So more people come in, they participate, and suddenly it's not becoming every 10 minutes, but every 8 minutes. And we decide, well, we want to keep it 10-minute rounds, just like the heartbeat of Bitcoin. So what can we do in this competition to make it harder, to increase the difficulty of mining? What can we do? Yeah, one more time?
6 ones.
Yes, exactly. So not adding the dice, but increasing the threshold. So not 5 ones, but 6 ones, right? And the same way, if you go to another lecture and people leave, but some wants to still play, and we take not 10 minutes, but 15 minutes, we decrease the amount of required ones, right? So on this analogy with dices, you can really pretty easily explain the difficulty element, difficulty concept of Bitcoin. And adding new dice is like buying more machines, basically, because you have better luck of throwing these 5 or 6 ones, right? So there's multiple things where you can work with around this analogy, right? And we are going to do some mining together, so you have a chance to win 10,000 sets right now. If you want to participate, scan this QR code, and it takes you to a website, a dice roller. It's a dice roller website. I use it a lot in classes and with teachers and kids. And set up the amount of rolling dice to 10. Okay, there is like a slider. You set it up to 10, and I will tell you what we're gonna do in a couple of seconds. So if you want to participate, just do this, and you can win 10,000 sets by mining. And you don't need to buy any special miners for that. What a deal. So let me just check how the thing works. Okay. So number of dices, yes, 10. Wonderful. So, okay. I think it's okay. You should go to 11. So just put it 10. So you should see 10 dices there, right? Oh, it's off. I'll just continue here. I'll just give it that. Okay. So anybody who wants to participate is ready? So I will tell you our competition will not be ones because you might have been clicking for now. But I want you to find, let's say, 5 threes. Okay, number 3. So start rolling, keep clicking, and whoever finds 5 threes is the winner of the competition, receiving 10,000. 5
sixes that are 10 threes.
5 threes. Verify around him. Verify if he has. Is it 5 threes? Gentlemen, you're the winner. Congrats. A big applause for you. You did as well. So this happens in mining, that in a short period of time, somebody finds the solution as well. What happens then in Bitcoin? Come. Create an invoice for 10,000 sats, and I will send it to you. So what happens if 2 people find a good block in a short amount of time? Anybody knows? Yes?
Everybody mines on the first one they got, and the longest chain wins.
Exactly. So we then found we have something called the orphan block. So one of them will be refused because in the next round, one of the winning ones will find another winning block. So one of the kind of chains that split is getting longer, and the other is just forgotten. So we have something called an orphan block. So it happens. So sadly, you were too close, but sometimes on these games, like, people find at the exact moment, so we kind of play again. So you can, again, on this little game, you can explain many things Bitcoin related. You can increase the dices, increase the thresholds, keep the time on average 1 minute. So when we do education in Roatan in Honduras, one full class is on mining, and we just play these types of games, and kids are just loving it. They're like going crazy on these games. Good. So we did some mining. And now let's go to hash function. That was you guys. So what's the analogy for hash function?
Yeah, we thought of DNA, even though it's not very consistent, because from the living being, you can derive the DNA, and if you change it, you can even slightly, you can have a completely different living being, something like that.
That's an interesting one.
A summary of.
Okay. The one that I use, I would need to go a little bit faster right now because we are slowly going to an end. I use this one, a meat grinder. Because what is a hash function? Hash function is a function where you put some input in and there's output going out. It only works one way. So when you put a nice, beautiful steak in a meat grinder, you get that thing out. But if you try to squeeze it the other way, you will not get a beautiful steak again. I sometimes call a hash or a hash function a digital excrement. I think you know why. If you eat, don't put it the other way, okay? So digital hash function is doing that, right? So on this, you can explain the oneness, or like the one way in physical world that you put something in, you get it out, doesn't go the other way. Another thing that works is putting milk into coffee, right? You put milk into coffee, you mix it. If you try to mix it the other way, it's impossible. The only way how you can separate milk and coffee is that you need to have some nanobots that will take atoms of milk and molecules of coffee and just separate them by force, which is super hard, right? So in real life, we have a lot of examples of one-way functions that you can explain people what the hash really is. Digital input, digital output, right? So you can play with this a lot. Even the growth of a tree is one-way function as well, because you cannot put the tree back into the seed anymore, right? It's just the time just goes in one direction, right? So the hash itself is a very interesting stuff. You know, you have the same output, same length of the outputs. So just explaining hash function with analogies is super, super nice. I'll just go quickly over these two ones. So mempool, very simple. What I use is a pool with water, right? Because we have transactions coming in. This is our tap that's constantly putting the transactions into the pool. And then we have the faucet on the other side where the transactions goes out. And the fees are basically working in a way like the smallest fees or the largest fees are on the top. So when the miners come, they take a bucket of water and they start hashing on that and trying to mine a block. The bucket of water has an exact size, let's say 4 liters, because we have 4 megabyte of a block size. So you can, again, on this analogy with water, pools, and buckets, explain mempool, miners, blockchain, right? So mempool is a pool of transactions coming in and floating out. The cheapest ones go down because they are forgotten by the miners. They want the most expensive ones to take first. So the cheap ones will wait until the water gets down, and the miners will grab with the bucket the cheap ones, right? So the mempool, every node has their own pool, so there's no one centralized mempool, and you on this you can pretty easily explain this as well. There is also a nice mempool visualizer called TX Street, which basically visualizes transactions as a people entering the bus and waiting on a bus station. It's a super cool stuff. It explains beautifully. You have a fixed size of a bus, only a couple of people can fit in, and only the ones with the most expensive tickets will get in first. The one with cheap tickets will wait for the next bus to come. And the Bitcoin bus leaves every 10 minutes, right? So again, beautiful analogy that you can explain many things on top of Bitcoin. And then we had a blockchain, which is, easy to do. It's like a ledger, accounting ledger. So in blockchain, you don't have money physically inside. There's only records of ownership, like who owns what. Just like in the ledger of accounting book. If you want to calculate how much is on one address, you need to calculate all the incoming transactions, outgoing transactions, just like with the UTXO set in Bitcoin. There's no one address where everything sits. It's all based on UTXOs. So the ledger, the physical ledger works beautifully, right? So, and adding a new block is basically adding a new page to the book, right? Every 10 minutes, accountant just adds a new page, and the lines are basically transactions. So today our book of Bitcoin has roughly 800,000 and something pages, right? Maybe 900,000. So again, on this you can explain it pretty well. We had a couple of more, but the time flies, and I would need to skip that, and I will just go to the end to close our talk. So we had UTXO, proof of work, and so on. Yes, this was proof of work, the muscles, the proof of work, easy to verify, hard to do. So I had a lot of analogies. I'm actually writing a book about Bitcoin analogies right now. And I use another ones for like inflation. With just one picture, you can pretty amazingly explain how inflation works. That you can actually wipe your ass with bolivars in Venezuela instead of buying a toilet paper because there's so much more paper. Pretty tough. I need to skip these ones. But guys, this is just a little piece of something we call the Bitcoin Educators Academy. This is a concept we developed in the beginning of a year. We already did 6 academies across the world: El Salvador, Hungary, Switzerland, and in 2 weeks we're going to have a German one for ladies. This is a ladies only Bitcoin Educators Academy. So if you're a lady in Bitcoin interested in education, next weekend actually, it's a 4-day very intense academy based on public speaking, analogies, busting the myths. So it's super, super amazing. Bree here was one of the participants in the Lugano one that we did in July. So I just love this academy, and whatever we do there, it's like super based on soft skills and presentation and education. So if you're interested, reach out to me, or you can... It's super fun as well. It's super fun. So reach out to me or go to meth.com/BEA. If you're a man and you want to go as well, we're going to have one in Edinburgh in January. So go to the website, leave your email there. We're going to inform you of new academies we're going to have. And guys, thank you so much. My name is Dušan Matuška, and I'm the founder of METH. We are Bitcoin miners and educators. I'm doing education for 8 years. I was teaching math and physics before. And when I got into Bitcoin, I just fall in love with that. So that's my life today. We are financing it with mining and OTC services. And we try to one day educate 100 million people about Bitcoin. So hopefully few of you will be those 100 million of that. So thank you very much and enjoy the day.